Welcome to Co-Creating Now with Monica Goyle. Monica is a spiritual counselor and healer with a life purpose to put people in touch with their innate healing abilities, empowering them to live a life full of joy, love, peace, and abundance. Through this show, you'll learn to heal every aspect of your life by connecting to your higher self. And now your host, Monica Goyle, on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Namaste. It's so nice to be back and being live on the radio after almost 3 weeks. And here we are to talk about a very, very special topic and something that we all have doubts about when it comes to trusting our own intuition, our own guidance. And we have a very special guest, Lisa Ko, who's an expert on intuition. She's a PhD teacher, author, speaker, and it's very interesting that she began her journey as an engineer, not as a, psychic as a child or intuitive as a child, but out of her curiosity and, that deep longing to know what life is about, she came on this path and she studied science, engineering, psychology, metaphysics, and here we are. We are so blessed to have her today. Welcome, Lisa. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Monica. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Really grateful. So, Lisa, please tell us something about yourself. Let's let our listeners know about yourself. I know you have a book coming up. You have a lot on your website on intuition, and you have an amazing show Between Heaven and Earth. But we would like to know more from you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I am, you gave me such a wonderful intro. I thank you for that. You really kind of summed it up pretty well, that my background started out as an engineer and a scientist. And I really wanted to know more about how the world works. I want to know why things do happen the way they do. How does it all, how do people work? How does the world work? And then, but there was some point at which it didn't explain everything. And some of the things that was fascinating to me was, how do people know things that are amazing, that are knowing without knowing how you know it, for example. How did that person know not to get on that plane? They just had that, it seemed like that intuitive message that said, oh, don't do that today. And then they didn't get on the plane and the plane crashed. Or perhaps, there was a loved one who was in trouble and someone, their loved one just knew that they had to go and help them, that there was no phone call, there was nothing. They just knew they had to drop what they were doing and go help their child or help their spouse. And then it turned out that their loved one was in deep trouble and they needed that help. So how do people know that? And to me, that was like, wow, that's fascinating. And I got a degree in psychobiology because I wanted to know how the mind works. How do people think? And this was a part that wasn't explained by science. So that's how I started that. And I learned about it. I learned how to make it work for myself. I learned how to make it work in other people, how to build that intuition. And so what I like to tell people now is that I try to help teach people how to make their intuition happen when they want, on what they want, and get detailed information. And I was able to do that. I did it through studying with teachers. I also did a lot of studies in metaphysics because that's where a lot of that information is, and also the science behind the brain intuition. And it's fascinating work. And I even got a PhD in it, which was really kind of cool, just to really delve into the depths of it all. So that's what I do. So right now I teach people how to develop their intuition, and because I believe that when each of us has the ability to be really skilled at using our intuition, then we're going to get in life the best things. We're going to make the best decisions. and more synchronicities are going to work for us because we're connected now to a larger consciousness. We're connected to, our higher selves, and we're going to get guidance from the universe.
So what is intuition, Lisa?
So intuition is defined as knowing without knowing how you know it. So that's a little bit broad, but it's kind of the best way to describe it. There are things that will occur to us. It may be, and oftentimes intuition is like a pop-up. It's a quick knowing. It might be a thought. It might be an image. It might be something you hear inside your head, or that little voice. And you just, it's information that just arises, and we don't know how we know it. It's not something you came up through logic that you've created, that you've discovered, or that you figured out. It's just that information that has really, important content. So
you think like there is a way universe is trying to, or divine is trying to, give us a heads up, or
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess the question is, why? And I think it's because we're part of all of that. I'd like to think that there are other things out there in the universe that's trying to help us, that's outside of us, that is at least outside of our conscious understanding. And some people call it the divine. Some people call it, angels or divine guidance. And, if it's there, it's available for us to access, then, gee, that's what we should do. Absolutely. Access it.
So you think everyone can be intuitive?
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody, and, through looking at the science and, they've done studies with students who are, or young people who have never really had an intuitive experience, and have put them in situations where they had to intuit responses, so random events. So they needed to know when a particular picture was going to appear. It's like when they do when you do the slot machine and you get the cherry, and the different signs, and they would do that in science experiments and see if they could predict when a particular picture would appear. And they were actually quite good at it, and they had no experience. They had no process where they had developed their intuition. And so everybody has this. It's just like animals, how they have their instinct. We're animals, so we just call it intuition.
Yeah, but it's so hard to trust it. It's like, are we imagining it? There are so many doubts that I think most of us have in trusting our own selves.
Yeah, and I think it's because what I've found with a lot of my students is that it's because we're ignorant about what intuition is. And so we feel like, okay, if someone were speaking to you in a foreign language and every now and then a word that you understood popped up in that language, you go, oh, I knew that word, but I don't understand the rest. It's like, that's how intuition is. We don't understand the language that it's speaking to us. And so then, you kind of guess at what it means, and then sometimes you guess wrong. And that's why you don't have the trust. But when you understand how it speaks to you, and you understand how it comes to you, and the language that it's using, then you can trust it because you know what it's saying.
So what is the science behind intuition?
Well, the basic science that I've discovered is the way the brain works is the brain is it has two sides to it, the left side and the right side. And the left side of the brain is where we process information that's logical. It's where we have our language. It's where we're figuring things out. And that's the non-intuitive side. The right side of the brain is very intuitive. It's where it's more connected to our gut feeling. It's more connected to our physical feelings. And it sees the world in a big picture. So when things pop up, and we take notice of it, that's the right side of the brain. And also it has the ability to speak in symbols and not with words. And that's how intuitive messages come to us. So there's the overlap. And there's also other science that is done, as I mentioned earlier, with the experiments, where they've done work with, for example, a big one was remote viewing, which is where people are able to be in one location and then get information about another location that they've never been in before, and be very accurate about what is in that space. So one of the experiments they did, and the government actually did this, the military, they were trying to see if they could use remote viewing as, I don't know, I guess sort of a spy tool.
Right.
And they had somebody who was really good at remote viewing, and they they gave him a longitude and latitude location on Earth, which happened to be in Siberia in Russia. And they asked him that's all they gave him, and said, describe what you see. Well, it happened to be a military outpost, which I believe they had weapons there, and he actually was able to describe very accurately where the buildings were, what was located there, and what it looked like. And it was so accurate, they actually thought there was a breach of national security.
Oh, wow. How fascinating.
Yeah, so that's really strong validation that, and they've done this over and over and over again. So, gone through the whole scientific process that statistically shows that humans have the ability to have these intuitive and what we will call psychic abilities.
So what is the difference between being intuitive and being a psychic?
The basic, in my mind, is that it's just a matter of definition. I think most people are comfortable with intuition. A psychic, they think that is something that is, woo-woo or out there, but it's really not.
Right.
I think it's where the information comes from.
Okay. So basically both are the same, like tapping into the information that's available.
Absolutely.
Oh, fascinating. Thank you so much, Lisa. We'll take a short break and we'll come back and learn about more about intuition.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know. I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back, Lisa. Welcome back, friends.
Thank you. Thank you.
So as we continue our conversation, discussion on intuition, learning more from Lisa, I have another question for you, Lisa. So what are the biggest misconceptions about intuition?
I think the biggest misconceptions are that, a lot of people will see the others who have gotten either an intuitive message or maybe even a psychic message that that has a lot of detail. It sounds like this, if you watch, say, a psychic medium on television, they'll tell long stories about the past loved one or the person who's getting the message, all about their life and who was in it and the names and people think that that's how it comes, and it's not. That's not how it comes. Intuitive messages come in bits and pieces. It's sort of like putting a puzzle together. Sometimes people think, if you're clairvoyant, that means that you're seeing all kinds of things intuitively and psychically, and that it looks like it's movies. Now, for some people it is, and naturally, in other people you can develop that where it becomes that. But in the beginning, it's not like that. It's not... what you get, say, for an image is you might see an outline of something. You might see a silhouette, or you might see a little piece of an image. For example, you might get a car. And you know that it looks like a car generally, but you just, a car pops up in your mind. Yeah. But you don't, if you look at it or in your mind, you see the four wheels and the doors, and that's about it. You may get color, maybe not. What I do is I train people to get more information out of those pieces, and then they'll get the model of the car, the color of the car, where it was, where it's going, and so on. But in the beginning, it's not. So that's one of the misconceptions. Another one is that only some people are intuitive, or some people are psychic, that you're born with it or you're not, and if you're not born with it, you don't have it. Well, everybody's born with it and everybody has it. Yeah. It's just a matter of developing it to what degree, again, because I think it's part of us. And another thing I think that people have that's a misconception is that if you're not getting intuitive messages through pictures, you're not intuitive. And that's not the case. Intuition can come to you as a word. It could be a feeling. And the feeling is what I tell people is that you're drawn to something perhaps, or you feel a little repelled. It's not always emotional. Sometimes it's physical. Sometimes it's hearing a word inside of you or outside of you. That's the other thing people have a misconception about. They think everything that comes intuitively is going to be outside of them, that I saw, outside of that, for example, or if it's psychic, that I saw a 3D vision of an angel and it was outside of me, and, it felt like I could touch it, but it wasn't there. And that happens, but it's very, very rare. And that most of the time these messages are coming inside of us. They're coming in our mind's eye, or inside of us. Sometimes, and that's why people get confused. Well, is it my intuition or is it not? Because it seems like it's maybe my own thoughts or my own voice, or my imagination. That's a big one. My imagination. Yeah. And it's hard. It's very, very close. So those are some of probably the biggest misconceptions.
But Lisa, like you said earlier, when we ask these psychics a question, so there is a whole story or a lot of details that come out, in a flow. So you think as we practice our intuition, it's developed to that extent that we all are able to?
Absolutely. And that's how it comes. I describe the process of intuition development that turns into this, the psychic ability, what we would consider getting those big, long stories. And what happens, and this is kind of like the secret, because the psychics don't tell you this, mostly I think because they may have just been very naturally psychic, and have a high psychic ability, and so they don't even know themselves. But if you have to start from scratch, this is how you do it. It starts out in little bits and pieces. And it's almost like a picture starts to form. So you go through this, what I call a 3-step process of being able to trigger your intuition, and you do it with a question. And then a piece of information pops up, and being open to receive it so that your mind isn't confused with a lot of mind chatter. And I show you how to do that. And then taking the pieces and going through the cycle of Q&A, asking your intuition, getting the pieces, and then eventually you get enough pieces that it reveals to you the story. It reveals to you the message. And it's and again, the pieces come in words and pictures or parts of pictures or symbols or knowing a concept, a brief concept. And it's just like a picture. You know, when they have the pictures that kind of you get a little piece here, a little piece there, you don't see the whole picture. And as they add more pieces to the picture, all of a sudden you go, oh, I know what that is. That's how it comes. And then the story will evolve around it. And as you practice and you develop more, then you can be that wonderful, amazing psychic that tells you all these amazing stories.
I think the key is to start trusting those feelings and
yes, absolutely. That's one of the steps in the process. I talk about the 10 key secrets to intuition, and that's one of them, is to believe that you could do it. Number one, and to trust. And I think that's the biggest thing, and that I found with working with people, is that they get so nervous about what they're getting and whether it's right or not, and they're doubting all the time, and the trust goes out the window. But the best way to develop that trust is you have to keep working at it. And this is what I tell everybody. They laugh. You get what you get, and you don't get upset. Right. You know, when you have kids, this is what you tell them. You get what you get, and you don't get upset. Yeah. And that's the mantra. So whatever comes, it's okay. Because as you're developing, you're going to practice. And as you're practicing, you're going to get whatever you get, and you don't get upset. And then other times, even when you are more developed and you're really good at it, you may get something that doesn't seem like it's like, oh, well, that can't be right. But then you find out it is later. And that could either be because it's information you didn't know about, it's something that is going to happen in the future, and it hasn't happened yet, or it's just you just don't have the right perspective. You don't see the big picture of what's going on. And when you do, then you go, oh, now I see what that message was about. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Could you share some examples of that from your own experiences when you started with this? And, how you developed your own intuition. Okay.
Well, there are a couple things that I can share with you. The way I developed it is, and I started from scratch. I didn't know anything. I felt I was super unintuitive. When I was a kid, I thought it was really cool. I thought it was like magic. I wanted to learn how to do that. And I even got a deck of ESP cards. They're Zener cards.
Yeah.
And what they have 5 different shapes: star, circle, square, and you had to shuffle the deck and predict which one was going to pop up. Well, I got them all wrong. I was really bad at it.
Yeah.
So I at that point decided I am not intuitive. I'm not psychic. That's it. But I wanted to learn, because they always say, everybody can learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And so I started to study, and I studied with a lot of different teachers. And I studied, I also, studied metaphysics, which is more academic, and I got into the science, and I looked at a lot of the scientific evidence that's out there, from a lot of different researchers, and started to practice, and I started to work at it.
So you didn't give up, basically. You just...
No, I didn't give up, and I had I had results.
Yeah.
They weren't huge, but things started to work. One of the first things I did was, here's a story. I was in a class, and it was a great teacher, and what she did was she sat us down and she told us, okay, you're going to do a reading for someone else, and so pair up, and so I paired up with this woman, and she said, okay, get a message from your angels. And she didn't give us a whole lot of much more instruction other than be calm, ask for a message from your angels for this person,
right?
And then just give it, and you get what you get, and you don't get upset. And what I got was, tell her not to worry about her health; she'll be okay. And I looked at her and I thought, she looks fine. She doesn't look like she's sick. What if I, like, get her upset or insult her or something? And I thought, again, you get what you get. You don't get upset. So I told her, your angels are telling me that you're going to be okay. Your health is fine. Don't worry about it. And she looked at me and then she burst into tears. Oh. And she was crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? And she said that she had just been told she had cancer. Mm-hmm. And I was stunned. Mm. But I felt terrible, but that was the message that I gave her. And we actually stayed in touch and she's okay.
Oh, that's,
she got over all whatever she had. Mm-hmm. But I learned you got to get what you get and not get upset. Just do it and do the practices, do the exercises, go take a class, go learn, and get with people who are like-minded and are right to practice with you. And it works. And eventually, as you work at it, and I started to do readings for people. Mm-hmm. I never wanted to be a reader. That was not. That was the last thing I wanted to do when I started studying all this stuff. Was to be an angel reader. But I became an angel reader, and my intuition said, go do it. And I did. And I got better and better to the point where I was actually a sold-out reader. People couldn't get on. Yeah, you had to either sign up early in the morning to see me for that day if I was out reading in public, or you wouldn't get a spot. So I learned how to do it, and it worked. It was really awesome. Awesome.
How wonderful. It's so amazing how, life works, and you just listen to your inner voice, your intuition, and, just guide it to this fascinating and totally different career, I would say, or, a way of life.
Yes, exactly. A very different way of life, but a great one, a really exciting one.
That's awesome. And let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
Feed your soul with Waves of Consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Matt Connerton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connerton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connerton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.